Canteen project about a week and a half ago. This is the prototype. I basically looked at some views on the web and made some modifications along the way. This is, like I said, the very first one. Let's move on to the next screen. After it sands up, it looks pretty good. The knob is a little different and the spout's a little bit different. It's 9 inches around and came out a pretty good size for a canteen. It's a little bit on the big side, but it'll hold enough water for where you can actually use the thing. Uh, just different views of it, and we're making this. This one was made out of pine. There I am. Probably just burnt the laser emblem on with the three target hawks on there, and there it is off to the side without all the mess on it. Been stained with a little bit of stain. I need to go around this and clean this up just a little bit. And it came out pretty nice. This is a walnut mug that my son made that just while we were still finishing this. And it's kind of funny. We covered this with polyurethane in and out, and he said the thing leaked with like six through the pores of the walnut. So polyurethane is not a good finish for that. That's the first time I tried it on the inside, and it just didn't seal it up. So probably go back to the beeswax and something a little bit different than that. Made a very pretty cup though. The next project that's come along with the canteens is a friend brought over about 6 of these 1x12s, about 12 foot long. So I was able to cut them into just enough boards to cut all this. Put the CNC to a lot of work with cutting the little pockets out so that the canteen sides would hold a little more water and lighten the weight up. And this has a lot of knots and a lot of cracks and a lot of splits in it. Had to do quite a bit of work to keep it cleaned up. These are some of the parts that go in it. That's the collar, and then the nozzle, and the stopper, and then the handle. A little bit different design than the prototype, and also the hole's a lot bigger. I ended up putting them, assembling them, and just dry assembling them, wrapping them with masking tape, and I put 16 of those kits together. And this is as I was assembling. That fur was 7/8, a little on the heavy side of 7/8, and so when I planed it, of course, pine and fir create a lot of shavings. And my DeWalt planer, I had to clean the dust collection out of it a couple times, but right out of the planer, I was just dumping it into this, and this was doing a good job. I did end up taking the rags off of my little ends in here, and of course, I modified that and had put them in. Along the way, you have to repair some cracks and splits and stabilize them and do all kinds of different things to make them work. There they are with stacking up as I get along. The one set is just the sides, and then this is the inner rings with all the little parts that cut out. This all cuts out of one CNC file, and it goes together pretty quick. Of course, it throws parts when it's cutting out, even though I've got them tabbed. Sometimes it'll send them flying, and there they are as I keep assembling. It takes me about an hour per kit to get them together. Did use this rapid fuse. It's kind of a ethanol CAA glue, and it made for a real fast assembly of these. I really liked it, and I also was using some just regular CA glue and the activator to fix things that were coming apart on it. Made for some good joints. The fur had a lot of splits in it, and I cut a lot of them out, but every now and then I'd be caught with one I thought was solid and find out that it wasn't. So I'd have to glue them back together and then fill them and then stabilize them. And then the kits are coming up. Of course, I emptied this barrel twice with all the coals and the scraps. This wood was just riddled with these splits all the way through it, as you can see, and bunches of them on there. And it was fairly green. This probably was kiln, but it's still a little bit on the green side. Some sap in it, as you can see, and some of it. Resawed a lot of it down, got rid of the knots and splits and the cracks, and then re-glued it up. Those have made pretty good boards. I should have done that in my first 5 or 6, but I had like 5 canteens that I could get good parts out of them, and so I didn't have to do that. And then the rest needed to be cut back and getting rid of all the knots and cleaning them up. And there they are starting to stack up. Like I said, I was heading towards 16, and they made nice kits. I just handed the boy that kit, and they went to sanding on them and getting them together. creates a lot of dust. I must have cleaned the CNC machine inside in the dust closure 16, 8, 30 sometimes, and it would just cover it with dust, and then you'd vacuum it out. And it takes about 3 or 4 minutes to do that, but just keep up on it. And I was also cutting out some little dowels parts, so some little dowels would come in there, and you'd be a little bit hard to find them in the dust, but I had to cut some extra dowels just to fill in for the ones that were either consumed by the router bit. Well, here they are right here. And, the boys cleaned up the edges of these, and I told them to leave the faces alone, and they just take all the burrs off of them. These fit in these little pinholes, and those are guide pins or alignment pins, I call them. And we would put two wraps of glue all the way around it, and then give it a little, put the two rings together, give it a little twist, take it apart, then put the dowels in there, and then push them together, and then clamped them. And the 4 rings, we could do that in about 4 or 5 minutes. And the first ring was getting board set pretty good, and the second ring, and so on. And these are just dry fitted, just a close up of them, looking at them. Uh, just always something going on. There's a picture of the CNC machine, and of course, Titebond used some of that as well. My planer, it didn't respond real well with the pine. I've had to keep popping the top of it, and I must have cleaned it 3 or 4 times from the pine shavings. I've forgotten how sticky the pine shavings were. The hardware don't ever have any trouble with it. Drill press, made a jig for drilling the holes with a 1-inch Forstner bit. Made a little jig for that. This is just a picture of some of the tools we're doing a woodworking merit. Sander, I used the other sander, got a 32 bit or 32 grit belt on there, and it made cleaning it for the rings so much easier. Bandsaw, didn't have to use a whole lot other than cutting some little extra dowels on it. Every now and then I'd have to clean it up. Then I did use the crosscut saw to cut all the 12-foot boards into 2-foot lengths. Table saw was used to rip it up and then joint the boards, and it was used quite a bit, several times through the process. Of course, you need air to blow off the sawdust off of you, tunes and extension cords and things like that. So going through there, didn't put the resaw to use at all this trip. And there the light is showing it cutting in and doing its job. And 14 hours of CNCing for the 16 canteens. So it was a pretty good project. Put brown paper over the tables at church and blue tarps down on the ground. And then this is a round hole that I can put them in and do a laser burn on them. Just attach it down. Bottom of the CNC machine with all the little jigs and the different parts it takes to make them work. Your little brad nail or electric for putting plywood down. This is a real good tool, and I just made this last week. It's 2 weeks ago. It's a vacuum silencer, and it basically takes the shot vac from screaming at you to just sometimes you didn't even know it was on. So my son, when he came down after working out the garage, he checked the vacuum because he didn't hear it. And so it made a big difference. All that is the 1-inch blue foam wrapped with a 1/4-inch plywood. And these are box joints that tie it all together. Of course, that's a reel with a 25, 30-foot hose on it. And that's pool line. Never get any clogs, and that's good stuff. These are some nice pine boards that I bought at Menards, and they were like $6 per board, and they were relatively clear. And then I got these. These were the ones that we made all of the canteens out of for the 16 for the boys. Got it for 75 cents a foot, and it's just took a little more work, but we got there. Dust collection going in the dust deputy. All these little things make this a lot nicer. Did try this rapid fuse wood adhesive. It's ready to plane in 30 minutes. You got about 4 minutes of handling. It's like a CA glue, and if you get it on your fingers, the only thing you do is soak your fingers in acetone, like going to the nail salon, and then it'll clean it up. I used 45 of these type clamps on this project with the boys. There's the complete kit ready to go with all of the parts that go together. That's the handle, that's the stopper that plugs in, that'll glue onto that. You only need 2 of these, but there's 3. Sometimes the CNC would rip one out and tear them apart. Then there's the 6 dowels that go in the alignment pins. And they're 3/4 inch, so the first one on this is 3/8. And so they're like half and half between each ring. So that worked out real well. for that project. Moving on, another is how they're assembled, just with masking tape. There's my list for materials that I need to buy. And after we got done putting 13, 14, 14 of them together, a couple from the younger boys came home, and so I glued them, disassembled and glued them. And these boys were considerably younger, so they needed a little help, and that's always glad to do that. Putting lots of clamping to it. Then I started with a sander. I started with a 60 grit or 80 grit belt on here, and I was just spending a lot of time sanding those edges, and so I just went down to the store and got a 32 grit belt on there, and man, I'd had them all done in about 30 minutes, so it was a whole lot different. This is the picture of the prototype with a webbing, kind of a webbing that we're going to put on it. Probably this will be replaced with leather, but the cotton canvas will be on there. And this is after I've sanded them with the machine. They're smooth. They'll be ready for the boys to take some 120 and some 220 and clean them up and make them soft and smooth and shiny. And then we'll put finish on them, or then we'll drill the holes and put the collar on them, and then we'll spray them and stain them, spray them, and get them ready to go. Put the porter cable to use, and it's nice having a little bit this belt in this way. It was easier to sand this way than the other way. They don't go running off. This is a jig that I built for these to put in. Basically, you can drill through here with a Forstner bit, and it will drill a hole in the right spot into the canteen. This is a better picture. These are little cam action deals. Cut them out on a CNC machine. I think I've cut 30 of them, and I put them on jigs, and you just twist them, and they'll bite in on that and keep it held. If you need a little popsicle stick in there as a shim, I make them just a little bit bigger, just in case one of them. I basically make it fit the biggest. And if you want them really to where they lock in, just put a popsicle stick in right in between here and there, and they just won't move at all. Anyway, this way you come in with your Forstner bit, drill your hole in here. That's for the spout. And there they are lined up. And there's the hole for the Forstner bit. It just basically sits in there, and then just clamp it down and put your Forstner bit in there and drill it straight through, and then you're set to go. This side view with the cams activated, and we should be good to go. All right, well, that's the status that we are with the canteens at this time, and we will jump over here and